Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Travel Collective, the meetup group, which is Tours for Women Florida, and the Travel Collective. We have a Facebook group and so much more. So it's a great place to join for conversation and meet other travelers. So tonight's conversation was all about solo travel. So as you know from the channel, I've spoken to a lot of solo travelers, and some of the reasons they give me for loving solo travel is they can do whatever they want. You get to a location, maybe you just feel like hanging out on the patio and watching the birds, or going for a real rejuvenative, spa soaking. One of our members who attends frequently mentions a place in Mexico that I can link in the comments, and her video. Like she said, it's easy to get to. The meals are taken care of for her. She's even had staff members who have helped her get in and out of the swimming pool and so forth when she's had some physical issues as well. So, very relaxing. She has her own little bungalow on the beach and really finds that it's just a great escape for her, even though she lives in an amazing place, which we all live in amazing places when you think about it. It's just often we just need a change of scenery. I've also talked to a lot of solo travelers who have taken themselves away for a weekend. Again, whether it's just they really want to focus on themselves, watch their own TV programs, eat whatever they want, and just really pamper themselves. This can be a great way to kind of disconnect from the busyness of your life, of your family, whatever obligations that you might have. Now, for me, I will honestly say I don't love solo travel. I spend a lot of time on my own, but I have been a solo traveler, not knowing someone who's put it out to find someone else to join me on a workshop. In fact, several years ago, one of my great travel friends that I met, her and I met via, I saw a post for wanting to go photograph somewhere. And most photography workshops and weekends are fairly short, maybe 3 days. Sometimes it's just a weekend. But oftentimes you need to be following the photographer around in your own rental car. You have the costs of lodging. Not every photo trip or photo excursion is all inclusive. So in this instance, it was something I really, really wanted to do. And so I reached out in a couple of the other meetup groups I was in and found a woman who wanted to do the same. So after a few conversations, we decided we would share a hotel room and we would share a rental car. Now, granted, we'd never met before we met at the airport, but we instantly really hit it off. I think we made it clear kind of what our patterns were in the evening. Photo workshops, oftentimes you're getting up before sunrise to go out. Sometimes you get a nap midday, but then you're oftentimes going back out late afternoon for sunset, or night photography. So all in all, yes, we did share a bathroom, and I'm not sure if I would do that now. I think as we get a little bit older, we get a little bit set in our ways of how we need to sleep, what our routines are, and just the comfort level if we're in a new situation as a quote solo traveler joining a group and not knowing a single other person. Instead of putting a lot of burden on your new buddy, having your own room might alleviate some of that additional stress. You have some downtime. I always advise in my own groups that I lead and do the driving, that since we're spending so much time together in a shared van, and most of these groups are mixed, most of the people don't know each other before coming on the trip, that having your own room can be a really good way to have some downtime. So you're kind of like tiptoeing in as a solo traveler, maybe arrive at the destination a couple of days early. For instance, if you're taking a long trip, 10 days, if you're joining one of the Alaska trips, or if you're going overseas and joining, say, a Rick Steves group, or one of the other groups that you may have come across in some of the travel women's groups, some of the other ladies that lead travel, you might want to get to the destination a day or two early. Talk to the tour leader. Sometimes they're helpful in helping set you up at that same hotel. for me, oftentimes when I've joined a group trip, this has helped tremendously. I'm not great at sleeping on the long flights. I do enjoy the long flights. It gives me a chance to catch up on reading or movies or writing. But I do need that time once I get to my destination to kind of reacclimate, get my body clock switched to the new time zone, get some additional rest, get my nutrients back. Oftentimes when we fly, we tend to dehydrate ourselves a bit because we don't want to use the bathroom multiple times. We have a lot of nerves going into a long trip like that. So giving yourself some padded time at the beginning and even sometimes at the end, maybe after the trip, you want an extra day to stay in a city. Maybe your in and out city is, say, Berlin or Frankfurt, or maybe it's somewhere in Italy, or it could be London. Having that extra day to repack your stuff or go into town and take a walking tour of your choice, or do some of your own shopping. Whatever that might look like might really enhance your trip overall. So what are some places to find other travelers if you're not completely comfortable going on your own? Facebook has several groups. A Meetup has several groups. I'll see if I can do a screen share and drop them in the comments. You don't, even though with travel, I know with Meetup, they often want you to meet travelers in your own area, but maybe you're looking for doing a solo trip and connecting with people once you get there. You're dipping your toe into that exciting world of doing it all on your own. And, again, maybe no one's, you've asked and asked and no one's wanted to go to Belize with you, or no one's wanted to go to Amsterdam to see the tulips. So this is where, look for a small group trip, or take steps to plan it yourself, and then do the leap into doing some further solo travels on your own. So as I mentioned, you can go on Meetup and you can look for groups, or, the word travel. If I put in solo travel on Meetup, I may not necessarily want to limit it just to my area. I may want to join a group that's doing other things. There's Italy, planning your trip to southern Italy. Maybe I just want to join and listen to the group and hear what they have to share. This is a great way to potentially meet others that enjoy travel. So those are some ways. There are a lot of Facebook groups. So if you get onto Facebook, there's general travel groups. There's Host a Sister, which does lend itself more to women. And, you want to look at the profiles, do your homework a little on individuals. But I have recently, on our call this evening, we did hear some success stories of, someone joining Host a Sister and having someone come and they shared a wonderful time in their town, or they've gone abroad and been shown an amazing place. So these are some ways to connect with others. So those are a couple ideas: Facebook groups, Meetup groups. There are some websites. There is a site called Journey Woman that is geared more to women, where you can find small group trips. Occasionally they host events where you can learn from others, maybe meet some other people that way. Book groups might be another avenue. I know locally, my libraries here in Las Vegas host a lot of travel book group events, and that might be something to join. Try to meet some other people. Look around your community. What are some places you might be able to volunteer that share your interests? If you're into wine, there's probably a wine drinking group. If you're into reading or books, as I just mentioned, book groups. Hiking, I've heard great things about local hiking groups. Arts, photography, these are different organizations too, but sometimes you have to dip your toe in and try it. And if the vibe isn't welcoming, which has happened to me, I will admit, keep trying. Sometimes you just got to give yourself that extra to keep at it, keep going. I feel like sometimes ever since I moved that it's been very hard to meet people here where I'm at now. I don't have kids in the local schools, things like that. So I do need to look for community groups, hiking groups, book groups, finding local businesses even that host events. And sometimes I feel like, wow, I went to that book club again and nobody really talked to me. So sometimes you have to take a little incentive on your own, make the first step, go into some groups, ask, create your own Facebook group for your community and start being bold and putting it out there to try to meet others that way as well. So sometimes it just takes a little repeated effort and concerted keep trying. But volunteering is often a great way too. I mean, other volunteers may share your same age. They are definitely probably share the same interests, whether it's pets or helping a group of people in your area. Find things that speak to you, find things that resonate with you. Some places for taking your first solo trip. I've heard from a lot of solo travelers. We had some suggestions in our group tonight. Look for travel deals, look for things that are easy to get to from your home, whether it's driving and checking yourself into the hotel, doing your research. I mean, just those baby steps sometimes then will make you feel comfortable. You'll start to feel stronger in, that, hey, I can do this. So tonight we did hear some suggestions of, California, for one, is full of destinations. Looking up places, if you've got airline points or miles, and getting yourself to the airport. I know years ago, I just needed to get out of the Midwest winter. So I looked and saw, wow, it was a budget airline, but I think it was like $100, probably less back then. I'm not sure. But it was a great deal to get out of Iowa and get to California. I had met a couple people, and so I did it. I traveled by myself, parked my own car at the airport, made sure people, my friends or my parents or family members, even at the last minute, just said, hey, I'm going to go do this. Here's where you can find me. And this was pre-cell phone days. So now it's even more important. Give people your cell phone number, give them where you're going to stay, give them the airlines that you're going to be flying on. If they have more details, should you need their help, they immediately have more information to help you, which is really important. When you're traveling by yourself, it's important, as we heard from some of our participants tonight, to maybe look at smaller lodgings. Sometimes when you do stay at a bed and breakfast or a small inn, some of those places are more in tune with their guests. I know when I went to Ireland, I was traveling with someone, but I do know there were a couple people there on their own, and each day at breakfast, the innkeeper would ask each person, or, she'd go over to their table and ask them. You could hear them having some sort of conversation. Hey, what are your plans today? Where are you thinking of going? So she was giving some great tips on places she knew, but also now your Airbnb, or not your Airbnb, your bed and breakfast or your inn, somebody is aware of what time you left, where you're going, maybe some of those types of things. I was recently in Barcelona, Spain, and the same thing. I was traveling with my father, but there was a time where he was solo on his own, and no cell phone, no laptop to send him an email at night. So I got to know the hotel staff. I made it a point to find out who they were. And even if that means I can't be there in person, getting on the phone, talking to the manager, making sure they're aware, like, I'm his daughter, he's going to be staying in this room, can you please kind of keep an eye on him, check to see if he comes down to breakfast. So anytime I called, they immediately knew who I was, why I was calling, had my phone number, and could easily be put through to his room. Not every hotel nowadays has in-room phones, so that's another thing to find out, to ask questions about. Finding out, from the hotel staff what is happening or what is safe in that area. in Barcelona, we were told about a few scams happening. Unfortunately, we were still scammed on another scam, but that's on another video. But again, knowing what's happening so you can be aware, where to walk. I've been in other cities at night and been with a group, but then decided to venture off on my own. Again, these are small steps in the process of becoming more comfortable being a solo traveler, but it's important to make these first efforts. Oftentimes, when you're solo traveling, more people are often eager to talk to you, but eye contact, smiling, again, have your eagle eyes, or whatever they call it, your third eye, your extra, sensory senses up. But, if you choose to eat in certain places, or, sit at the bar where you can make conversation with people that work there, there are often opportunities to meet locals, or to be, make introductions with people. So it is a balancing act of your safety, what you're comfortable with, and the places that you're going. There's also a list of some of the safest places for solo travel. We talked a little bit about that. Let me pull it up again. This site is probably updated often. Here's one that came up recently. Let's see what it says. Here are the top 30 safest countries for solo female travelers. If you're from the United States, they also indicate to check out the country-specific information page from the State Department. So Iceland comes up as one of the safest countries. What a beautiful place. You look at the information about Iceland, you've got, such amazing landscapes. So that might be a place to consider. You don't have to go for very long. Look for a package deal. Look at your dates when you're able to go. But breaking it down into something you're most comfortable with can be a starting point. Or look for a group, going to one of these Facebook groups for female travelers. If you're a male, same thing. There's probably some general travel groups that you can join. I'm not trying to single out the guys that they don't have as many choices, but unfortunately, it seems like since I'm a woman, I am more aware of the resources for women. I would like to have some conversations with some solo men travelers, because I know there's many of you out there, and I know some of you have told me on interviews that it can be a challenge. You're viewed as someone that's threatening. It's not as easy for you to be a solo male traveler. So it'd be great to have another conversation that's more up to date. So feel free to reach out. Other destinations, we've got Canada, we've got New Zealand, Finland, Denmark, Norway. I know all of those kind of far northern countries. I've been looking at them myself recently. They do tend to be a little bit more pricey unless you're willing to go in off season. And as we all know, off season can also mean winter, where you have longer hours of darkness. So again, that might be a consideration. Australia, again, a little bit more pricey to get there from the United States. Japan, Singapore. Let's see. There's also a list here. Here's some European countries: Bulgaria, Montenegro, safest countries. And then this site goes into why each of these countries is a good choice, whether it's low crime rates, easy to get to, safety, those types of things that we just mentioned. But you know what? There's lots of beautiful places in the United States. So I know most of you on this call tend to be from the United States. We have callers join from other places like Canada, and tonight we did have someone join from Australia. So we often do get other inputs and opinions on places to go. And there are some amazing places to go. There's a lot of amazing all-inclusive resorts, which might be an answer for you. I know a couple of the travelers who've been on the calls and have given input shared, some of their favorite places that they go each year on their own. As I mentioned, whether it's a beach destination, a spa destination, Santa Fe, New Mexico was mentioned, Palm Springs. There's a lodge in Yosemite National Park. There's places on the East Coast. There's some amazing places. So sometimes just doing a little bit of homework as we talk about. Let me see if there's another list. Other things to be aware of for solo women, solo travelers is being aware of what you're carrying. This is why it's important to pack less. The less things you're having to keep track of, the less likely you are to be a target and maybe feel like you fit in a bit more. If you're only traveling with the bare minimum, a backpack, a small rolling bag, really just what you can handle to really minimize how you're getting from place to place, whether that's using public transportation or whether you're paying money or taking the train. In London, it's often easy to get on the train from the airport to a particular neighborhood, these types of things. So we talked a bit about that. We also talked about things like eating dinner alone. And for many of us, that can be a challenge. But I do remember many times, even when I'm traveling with someone else, sometimes I just choose to eat alone. I need that downtime. I need to gather my thoughts. Now, whether I kind of just, keep to myself because mainly I just want that space to eat alone, but I no longer feel uncomfortable walking into a fine restaurant and asking for a table for one. You may have a few people look at you. Oftentimes I'll ask if it's okay to sit at the bar because, as I mentioned, if I go sit at the bar, I can eat alone, but I can also, if I want, choose to have a casual interaction with the person working behind the bar or someone that sits down and is sitting down as well. There's often lots of business travelers if you're in a big city, but even in smaller towns, feel free to walk in and enjoy your food, enjoy your time. It can be very empowering to actually do the thing that you're most scared of, whether that's getting on the plane by yourself. I remember the first time I flew international, and I can't remember which one. It might have been all the way to Amsterdam to meet my father. I completely flew all the way to Amsterdam. I knew he would meet me there, and he didn't, again, no cell phone. I'm hoping his planes are on time. I've got his flight information. But again, we had a conversation. What's our backup plan? What if his flight got delayed? How long was I going to wait at the airport? Was I going to go on to the hotel? What was a backup plan? Was I going to hang out at the airport? So having these steps in place takes away a lot of those hurdles of fear, feeling alone. Find out what it is that really makes you feel uncomfortable. Counter dining is often really a great place, as I just mentioned, if you do walk into a restaurant. I know on Condé Nast Traveler, which is a big website, they have a lot of great tips. They often talk about faking it until you make it. A lot of us feel nervous doing something for the first time. Well, just, pull it together. And like I said, when I travel alone and I'm doing my thing, I always try to wear what makes me feel most comfortable. I condense my items. So again, I have less items to keep track of. So I'm not worried about accidentally setting down my cell phone. In another episode last week, a lot of us travelers were sharing packing tips, and I have this strap I recently got for my phone, and I literally wear the phone around my neck now. That helps me always have the phone in front of me. I can text someone. I can have my software like FlightAware. If I'm meeting someone from another flight, my own flight, it'll often update me which gate I need to be at. For me, it's getting to the airport early. That takes away a lot of the stress I feel about flying in general, is to get there early, get through security, sit down, have a little something to eat, and whether it's I have my book or I'm people watching, now I'm where I need to be. And that helps me kind of alleviate my fears, my nerves, whatever you might want to call it. So just always walk with confidence. Put that in the front of your mind. If you're, what makes you feel most confident? Where what that is, pack for that. If you do need a big suitcase and you like to check your bag so that now you really just have, a handbag with you, then by all means do it. Don't let someone talk you out of that. Try to do what makes you feel best. Um, let's see, trying to see what other choice things they bring up on this Condé Nast site besides what we talked about tonight. We touched on the fact of loneliness, and I think that can often crop up when you're traveling alone, which is why you may want to plan some activities where you are interacting with other people, whether that's a free walking tour. Plan ahead for that. Maybe 3 days into the trip, look at, hey, where is there a free tours on foot? That's a great resource. We also talked about using Meetup. Look up that city that you'll be in and look for events in that city that appeal to your interests. And go ahead and sign up or message the Meetup director and then make it a point to do it, to really do it, which is why sometimes booking yourself on an actual tour, look through TripAdvisor. They often have several day activities, or, if it is food that you love, or you came to the city for some nightlife, look for a walking tour, look for whatever that type of activity you might enjoy. Go ahead and book it and put some money towards it, because then you're more likely to actually follow through and do it. I know sometimes when we don't pay for something, we often feel like, oh, it's no big deal, and we'll talk ourselves out of things. Whereas often if I've committed with paying some money, buying a ticket, I'm more likely to actually follow through and do it. Um, have set phone call times. That's another thing that popped up, is setting aside time to check in with friends back home, family members, and having a plan. Sometimes just having a plan for each day where you are looking for things to be social. In the instance of my father, I know he found things to do. He set aside a certain time to go out and eat in public. He would eat his lunch in public. Sometimes he would find a table by the window where he could look outside, but he still felt safer not worrying so much of somebody walking past, let's say, and grabbing his camera off the table or distracting him and doing something like that. Finding a place where you don't need to take that much, whether it's you're just taking a book, but you're really just people watching. Taking a short walk, but finding ways to build in some, quote, people time into your trip is a great way a little bit to combat that loneliness that may come if you're a social person and need social interaction. And even for us, some of us that are introverts, I find too that sometimes after too many days alone, I kind of am like, I'm curious. I want to go talk to someone. I want to get out and meet someone for a coffee. A lot of the public libraries, even worldwide, are starting to put together new programs to talk to people, for people to interact in person. So if you're going to be in a particular city, look those up. I know here in Las Vegas, many of the libraries have just Friday adult social hour, they call it, or coloring hour, or they might call it several things, or they'll have a talk, just going to the talk where you can, listen, raise your hand, maybe learn something new. All of these are ways to incorporate in your trip. So we had a great conversation with solo travelers. We'll probably do it again. So check out the links in the recording. And if you have travel tips, I hope that you'll join us on our next Let's Talk Travel, our travel conversations. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much.